So to get our data service started, we're going to go over here to our Solution Explorer, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this Services. And then we're going to add a interface, so a new item. And then we're going to find the interface, and then we're going to simply just name it contact data service. Add that, and we'll go over here to our interface, we'll make it a public, and then we're going to set up some methods. So the first thing we want to do is create an ienumerable like we were using earlier. Ienumerable contact, we want to add in that model there, and we'll call this just get contacts. And then we're going to do a void save for when we want to save our contacts, and we're going to pass it a collection that we have, and we'll just call this contacts. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the reason we want to do an interface here is because right now we're going to use a mock data service. It's not going to be permanent, and instead of later on going through and changing all of our mock data service instances to our new JSON, if we just set it up with the interface, we only will have to change the actual service that we're using at one point. So that being said, let's go back over here to our services and create our mock data service. So we'll create a new class, and we're going to call this mock data service, and we'll click add. Now, of course, the first thing we want to do, public mock data service, and we want it to derive from our new interface that we made, iContact data service. We're going to get, of course, a little fit because we're not respecting the rules of the interface here. So we'll click it and do implement interface. And we're first going to create a private ienumerable contact, and we'll just call this contacts. And then we're going to just have a little constructor here we'll set up, and we're going to create a new list of our contacts. This new list contact. Then in here we're going to add a new contact object. And if you remember, we had a name, and we'll just call this John Doe. And then we had our phone numbers, so we'll create a new string array, if you remember. And we'll just do 555-111-1111. And we'll have another number as well, 555-222-2222. And then after the phone numbers, we want to create some emails here. So new string array to John Doe at personal.com. So that's his personal email. And then we'll do John Doe at business.com. So that'll be his work email. Alright, and now that we have that set, we're actually going to just copy and paste this, and we'll create a second contact. And we'll just change it to Jane Doe, and we'll change up her numbers here. Okay, so now that we created our two new contacts and changed Jane Doe's information, so it's a little different, we'll go down here to our get contacts. And this is where we're going to return the list that we created. So we'll return our contacts. And then our save we're actually going to implement a little later on. But for right now, what we're going to do is just set our actual list that we have stored in the class to the new collection that we give it. So going back to our book view model, going to go down to load contacts, and then we can create our contact data service here. So let's say we did a mock data service. Of course, add in the namespace here. We'll just call this service for short equals new mock data service. And then we can simply just call our contacts VM, load contacts, and we can do service.getContacts. Now, if you notice something wrong, then you got a good eye. The whole reason we did an interface is so we don't really have to be using the mock data service and things like our book view model. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to actually pass a data service to our book view model. So now our book view model is going to take an iContact data service, which we'll call service. And then up above here, we're going to create a private iContact data service and call it underscore service. So when we pass the service over here, we're just going to set it to the parameter. So now instead down here, what we can just do is erase this and call service.getContacts. And then now we're going to want to go over here to our app view model. Go over to our code where we called our book view model, and we're going to have, of course, a little error here. And then we're going to want to just create a little var data service equals new mock data service. And we'll add in the namespace there. And since this, of course, has our interface, we can just simply pass it the data service here. And since it's accepting the iContact data service, as you see, we can just pass it the mock one. And then later on, when we go to our JSON service and we implement that, we just have to come over here to our app view model and simply change mock data service to our JSON data service. So there was one last thing we need to do. Go back over to our book view model. And we're going to go down here to our load favorites. And in here, we're just going to simply pass it the collection of our favorites. So we'll do var favorites equals, we'll go to our service here, .get contacts, where, C for contact, where the C is favorite property is true. So wherever we have is favorite on all the contacts in our collection, we'll collect those. And then we'll call our contacts VM load contacts favorites. So now we have a command here to load just our regular contacts and our favorites. Okay guys, so now that we have our loading favorites and all contacts, we actually want to set up our book view. So we'll go over here to our Solution Explorer, select our book view. If you remember, we got this nice bright yellow layout. And we want to go down here to our XAML. And the first thing we should do is obviously get rid of this background right there. Let's actually give the grid a background color. And we'll just give it white so we can see things a little better. We want to have some columns here. So we'll do grid.column definitions. And we'll do 2 column definitions. However, the first one, as you can, let's see. As you can see here, we have our view split into 2, but we want to go back down to our XAML and we want to give the first column a width of, let's say, 225. If we go back over here to our view, we'll see over here is going to be the list view where we're going to select contacts, and then over here on the right is where we're going to be able to see the details of the selected contact. So this is why in our contacts view model earlier, we set up a selected property. So back to our XAML here. We want to set up another grid within this grid. So we'll do grid and we'll do grid column and we'll put it in the first column. Then next we want to do a list view and we want to call its item source here and we want to bind it. So we'll do binding. If you remember in the book view, that is our the book view model is our data context, and we have a contacts VM property in there, and then that that property also has a contacts property that we load into it. Then we want to set up the selected item here. We want to bind that, so binding, and we want to bind that to the selected contact. But we also want to prefix this here with the contacts VM. Then we're going to close off our list view here, opening and closing tag. And now we actually want to set up a list view item template because we perhaps up here we want to show maybe the profile image and then the name. We don't want it to just be a bunch of collection of strings of names. So back down here at our XAML, we want to set up a listview.item template. Then want to set up a data template here. And inside of this data template is where we're going to set up what the collection of items is going to look like. Now, instead of actually directly creating the content here, we're going to create a separate view that we can then reuse.